Hello, everyone. Welcome. Today we'll be reading chapter 2, or part of it. And that chapter is called Developing the System of Control. So we'll be ready in about 1 minute. Hey, Sean's mom. We're actually about to get started. What's up, everybody? I am Eagle Jaxson, and I'm here to bring you reading from books that otherwise wouldn't be read from in most cases. Today's chapter 2, The Great Reset and the War for the World by Alex Jones, Developing the System of Control. Now, last chapter, I did try the music. I don't want to do that. I'm gonna add my own music as some background music, but for now, we're just gonna use whatever's available. These are the two. This is only the second, live stream of this book reading. It's going to be a while. Hopefully, people will end up showing up. Anyway, Chapter 2, Developing the System of Control. Perhaps it's because Klaus Schwab released his first book, The Fourth Industrial Revolution, in 2016, with the expectation of Hillary Clinton's, with a Hillary Clinton win of the presidency. But instead, he got Donald Trump. That Schwab didn't get the world to pay too attention. Instead, he got Donald Trump. That Schwab didn't get the world to pay attention to the ideas in his book. I can't even figure out whatever. Let's pass that on, and what we'll do is specifically because of my mess up, we're gonna have to eat that ass, right?
Bitch, stop the car, I gotta piss. He just ate my ass, he wanna switch. Now I'm eating his ass. Eating a nigga ass. We be eating niggas ass. Eating his ass. Eating a nigga ass. We be.
You hear those crunches? Those are the crunches of a real ass-eating bish. Anyway. It's like Margaret Mitchell publishing Gone with the Wind in 1936, not having it become a massive bestseller, then coming back a few years later with the sequel, really Gone with the Wind. I imagine Schwab hanging out among all his rich friends in Davos, Switzerland, scratching his bald head and saying, "Why didn't Hillary win?" And I don't know a single person who voted for Donald Trump. Of course you don't. Maybe like Hillary after 2008 when she got blown away by Barack Obama, and that's not the only thing that Barack Obama has blown. Let's be clear about that. Schwab said, "Well, let's give it another try." Maybe the problem was with Mark Benioff. And if you remember in our last episode, I don't know how to say this guy's name, so I'm just going to say Benioff and his foreword of Klaus Schwab's book. Yeah, Salesforce is a big company in San Francisco and all the Silicon Valley people know about it, but maybe I need a bigger name. Let me think. Oh, I've got it. How about Microsoft? I'll get their CEO, Satya Nadella. That will make people stand up and take notice. Bill Gates founded Microsoft, and everybody loves Bill Gates. Not anymore. However, Nadella doesn't do much better than Benioff. Nadella begins by worshipping at the altar of Schwab and the WEF with this cringeworthy opening. You ready for this? Through insightful convenings and publishing, the World Economic Forum and its founder, Klaus Schwab, clap please, have continued to cast a bright light on both the opportunities and the challenges of the fourth industrial revolution. Yes, it is true. They are right to confront zero-sum thinking about the coming wave of new technologies by pointing out that their evolution is entirely within our power. If you're wondering much about Satya Nadella, the bottom of the first page of the forward gives you a quick little information bite. Satya Nadella is a CEO of Microsoft and author of Hit Refresh, the quest to rediscover Microsoft's soul and imagine a better future for everyone. So you can see what kind of person and where this person is thinking. Ideologically, of course. And as I read these books, many of the so-called business leaders strike me as nothing more than overachieving high school students who want to show the principal how much better they understand the school than anybody else. Then, when the principal is sufficiently impressed, asks to be appointed to student council rather than go through the messy work of being elected by the student body, here's a sample of this thinking from Satya Nadella. Okay? This is her. Quote, the confluence of data within massive computational storage and cognitive power will transform industry and society at every level, creating opportunities that were once unimaginable from health and education to agriculture, manufacturing, and services. My company and others are betting on the convergence of several important technology shifts: mixed reality, artificial intelligence, and quantum computing. With mixed reality, we are building the ultimate computing experience, one in which your field of view becomes a computing surface. Your digital world and your physical world become one. The data, apps, and even the colleagues and friends on your phone or tablet will be available anywhere you want to access them. Not only to you, by the way. I added that. While you're working in your office, visiting a customer, or collaborating with colleagues in a conference room. I don't mean to denigrate the technological achievements of companies like Microsoft. It's simply that I think they've overstated their value to the average person. Just like they tried to put Trump in jail for by doing with his real estate, which is what they all do. But that's not the point here. Let's take the idea that your apps can go with you on your phone or your laptop. That's great, and they do. Maybe I can go to a conference, get up an hour too early, and do a little work on my laptop and check emails on my phone. However, I still probably need to hit the gym, take a shower, get some coffee, and get something to eat before the first speaker takes the stage at 9 a.m. Thanks to big tech, I could do a little more work in my day. Wait, what does that say? Thanks to big tech, I can do a little more work in my day. But I don't think that calls for a reordering of society, and I don't either. I still have to get my ass down to the gym and pedal my 6 miles if I want to have the slightest bit of health benefit. And if by chance I'm staying in a nice hotel and the bike at the gym has a screen that shows a video of bicycling through the French countryside as I pump my legs, well, that's all nice and good. But just because I've seen a little of the French countryside while I'm sweating on the bike doesn't mean I have any increased appreciation of understanding the French culture, one of the oldest and most beautiful cultures of all time. Yeah, there are a lot of cultures, but not all of them are beautiful and known for good. I wouldn't say good things, but think that if you go all these African cultures other than Egypt, which we don't really even consider African, they don't have any beautiful culture. They just have some, learn how to mud hut or whatever you want to call it. Anyway, I don't think that quarters for a reordering of society. Like Schwab, Nadella wants to dazzle you with the technological changes because if you're a little intimidated, it makes you easier to control. You won't raise your hand to ask a question because you don't want to sound stupid. Maybe that's my superpower, Alex Jones, of course. I don't mind sounding stupid. And don't you always remember your teacher saying there's no such thing as a stupid question? I do remember that because I do remember some things my teachers taught me. But when they can't answer my stupid question, well, who's the stupid one? Here's Nadella, hoping you'll feel intimidated and hand power over to Klaus Schwab and his Davos buddies. So here she is in Klaus Schwab's book. Similarly, industry and society must come together to focus on empowering both people and organizations by democratizing access to intelligence to help solve our most pressing challenges. For example, if AI is one of technology's top priorities, healthcare is surely one of AI's most urgent applications. Coupled with mixed reality, the cloud, and business optimization tools, AI will be central to healthcare transformation underway on the science bench, in the clinic, and throughout medical center operations. That paragraph certainly wasn't put together by somebody with the slightest bit of liberal arts training. It makes me wonder if they're ever gonna if they've ever read a book that held their attention. Okay, so Nadella writes, industry and society must come together for the purpose of democratizing intelligence. That's retarded. Why in God's name do industry and society have to come together for the purpose of democratizing intelligence? Whatever the hell that means. Does some homeless person in LA hold one of the hidden keys to artificial intelligence? Is there some third grader in Wisconsin? If we could just get her to accept the need to democratize intelligence, all would be good in the world. All right, I accept that good healthcare is a priority. What do we know about good health, though? Don't be overweight, eat a healthy diet, exercise, have good social relationships. And on that last point, good social relationships, I suggest you read what Malcolm Gladwell has written about their importance in a short essay titled The Rosetto Mystery. Here's the anomaly about this small Pennsylvania town, first noticed by a man named Stuart Wolfe in the 1950s. Now, this is very interesting. Wolfe was a physician. He studied digestion and the stomach and taught in the social... Nope. You know what I'm going to do? I know what I'm going to do. Enjoy this song. Okay. You may have heard some sounds in the background that aren't, motorcycles and dogs outside. All right, let's read this part. Okay, where were we? Wolfe was a physician. He studied digestion and the stomach and taught in the medical school at the University of Oklahoma. He spent his summers on a farm in Pennsylvania, not far from Rosetto. Although that, of course, didn't mean much since Rosetto was so much in its own world that it was possible to live in the next town and never know much about it. One of the times when we were up there for the summer, this would have been in the late 1950s, I was invited to give a talk at the local medical society. Wolfe said several years later in an interview, after the talk was over, one of the local doctors invited me to have a beer, and while we were having a drink, he said, I have been practicing for 17 years. I get patients from all over, and I rarely find anyone from Rosetto under the age of 65 with heart disease. This was a shocking finding to Wolfe, and in the late 1950s, heart attacks were the leading cause of death for men under the age of 65. Oh, that's interesting. How could heart attacks be so rare in this one small town of Pennsylvania, populated mainly by immigrants from a small town in southern Italy? Immigrants, Italy. Remember that. Italians were slaves, they are immigrants. I am a direct descendant of slave immigrants. My grandparents were slaves in Tunisia, and they just passed away, rest in peace, in the last few years, both of them. They were slaves, child slaves in Tunisia. They grew up a little bit, had my father, and escaped to America. My father was also born in Tunisia as a slave child. So any of you saying slave reparation, fuck you. My family were white slaves in Africa, and they had to escape because they weren't treated as well as Americans slaves. Anyway, let's go back to it. What Wolf began to realize was that the secret of Rosetta wasn't diet or exercise or genes or location. It had to be Rosetta itself. As Brune and Wolf walked across town, they figured out why. They looked at how Rosatians visited one another, stopping to chat in Italian on the street, or cooking for one another in their backyards. They learned about the extended family clans that underlay the town's social structure. They saw how many homes had 3 generations living under one roof and how much respect grandparents commanded. This is beautiful. They went to Mass and Our Lady of Mount Carmel and saw the unifying and calming effects of the church. They counted 22 separate civic organizations in a town of just under 2,000 people. Wow. It's pretty interesting. But Nadella doesn't want to talk about things like good weight, healthy diet, exercise, and positive social relationships. Instead, he wants to talk about. I thought Nadella was a girl this whole time. It's a man, apparently. Wants to talk about individual variability in genes, immunological systems, and lifestyle for each person. All of those are worthy subjects of study, but why does that require us to reorder our society into some technocratic theocracy? And where is there any discussion about the quality of our social connections? How many people do we interact with in a positive way during a typical day? I mean, that's a question that is good to think about for me or for you. If you have an answer to that and you happen to be listening, let me know. Let me know how many people in a day have you had how many people did you interact with in a positive way during a typical day, or do you? The world Schwab and Nadella want to create is devoid of these connections, and as a result might be the unhealthiest society ever devised by the mind of man. Or he's probably a reptilian. Finally, Nadella moves to the close, which is where he wants to disarm the people of their skepticism, because if you trust them, you'll let them do things you wouldn't otherwise let them do. Remember that. Remember COV 199. Finally, trust. This is their words. Finally, trust in today's digital world means everything. In every corner of this world, we need a revitalized regulatory environment that promotes innovative and confident use of technology. The biggest problem is antiquated laws that are ill-suited to deal with contemporary problems. The prescient topics explored in this book, coupled with the dialogue it sparks at the WEF, World Economic Forum, of course, gatherings, are vital contributions to understanding and solutions. The potential benefits are unprecedented, and this book concludes, public-private leadership are essential. Now that's from Klaus Schwab's shitty book. Nadella is a smart, and that's what Nadella wrote in Klaus Schwab's book. Nadella is a smart man. He didn't get to his position at Microsoft by being an idiot. Maybe he got there by being a yes man, which is, I mean, it's a good way to get, it's a good way to sneak yourself in and get yourself into a position. I mean, I could say a certain group of people probably did that in order to get into better positions for causing, terror amongst the people. Sorry, I'm just pausing for 1 second. Okay, so back to the matter at hand. Maybe he got there by being a yes man, but certainly not because he wasn't smart. Like any good general, he understands the strengths and weaknesses of his own side as well as those of his enemy. Nadella understands that his side has these technological wonders, created by his engineers. This is a great advantage. What Nadella realizes he lacks is support for a great restructuring of society, and that's where he needs to use, this is my words, propaganda, etc. In order to implement his plans, he needs to get you to trust him. Think about trust in your own life. Many Catholics have been horrified in recent years to learn that the sexual abuse of children by trusted members of the clergy. In hindsight, the trust these parents placed in the clergy members is difficult to understand. However, these were supposed to be men and women of God who lived in fear of their eternal souls. It was difficult for many to reconcile this idea with the wickedness of some supposed people of God. Trust is not something we give people in the absence of a robust system of transparency and accountability. There have been too many examples in history when trust has been misplaced. Nadella wants to repeat the mistakes of the past when he writes, "The biggest problem is antiquated laws that are ill-suited to deal with contemporary problems." Could you imagine the government creating a new healthcare program where they told you that you couldn't observe the facilities or examine the credentials of the people running the facility? Parents would stage a revolt. But Nadella just wants you to trust him with these technological changes. Like Schwab, Nadella wants to close the deal with you, promising the enormous benefits while downplaying the risks. Almost like a Nancy Pelosi. Like, you can read the bill after you sign it. Because if they did need to get your consent, they're not going to tell you about the club they've got hidden behind their back if you protest. The hidden club is contained in the sentence. The quote, "The potential benefits are unprecedented, and as this book concludes, public-private leadership and partnership are essential," unquote. Here's the perspective I'm going to take about this sentence. Every time you hear the expression public-private, that's public-private, or partnership, I want you to replace it with the word fascism. Because you see, fascism, as practiced in both Mussolini's Italy and Hitler's Germany, was a public-private partnership. That's exactly what fascism is, and that's why these idiots out protesting don't understand anything. They don't know what they're talking about. They don't even know what fascism is. This is how fascism differs from communism. Now, that's important also. The communists seized the means of production and tried to run these industries. They didn't do a good job. Mussolini and Hitler had a different idea. Government and big business were both powerful entities. A battle between these two groups would be unproductive, as communists found out to their dismay. But instead of a fight, a cunning leader might understand that a deal could be made. Big business leaders don't like workers who agitate for better working conditions and higher pay. As a first step, Mussolini and Hitler broke their labor unions. Once the workers were disarmed, the leaders were free to attack other countries and do what they wanted with their own dissidents, not descendants, sorry. Whether you hear the word public-private, fascism, whenever you hear it, I want you to translate it into your mind as a promise that the government will not hesitate to attack the people if they protest against the plans of big business. Now, let's see here. Okay. In the preface to his second book, Klaus Schwab also begins by talking about trust. The cloaked language he uses makes one wish to have been a fly on the wall amongst the Davos elite when Trump was elected in 2016 and the years that followed. They must have been falling all over themselves, wondering whether Trump and his skepticism were the disease or simply a symptom of something much larger that threatened to undermine their plans. Now, that is a very interesting comment here. Um, where is this from? This is from now back from the Klaus Schwab book. Public trust in business, government, the media, and even civil society has fallen to the point where more than half of the world feels the current system is failing them. The widening gap in trust between those in the country's top income quartile in the income quartile and the rest of the population indicates that social cohesion is fragile at best and very close to breaking down at worst. It is this precarious political and social context that we face both the opportunities and the challenges of a range of powerful emerging technologies, from artificial intelligence to biotechnologies, advanced materials to quantum computing. This will drive radical, remember that word radical, shifts in the way we live, and which I have described as compromising the fourth industrial revolution. That's from Klaus Schwab's The Fourth Industrial Revolution, the book. Don't read it, don't buy it, and if you see it, burn it. No, you don't have to burn it, but you know what I'm saying. In the middle of the first Trump term, Schwab and his Davos crew must have been nervous. According to Schwab, the bottom 75% of the country thinks the top 25% is screwing them. They understood that things are very close to falling apart, which is why he wrote, social cohesion is fragile at best. This isn't me talking, Alex Jones. This was Klaus Schwab in 2018. But Schwab is nothing if not persistent. He was still pushing this fourth industrial revolution garbage when he wrote, I added the word garbage there, when he wrote, we face both the opportunities and the challenges of the range of powerful emerging technologies. Yeah, no shit. He's like that Catholic priest who says to the parents of his parish, I know there's been a lot of accusations about priests being alone with kids, but I still want to take your young teenage boys away for a long ski weekend. Schwab freely admits that the elite of the world are not trusted by the vast majority of the population, but he's going to keep going. And here he says this. But standing at these crossroads means we bear a huge responsibility. If we miss the window of opportunity to shape new technologies in ways that promote the common good, enhance human dignity, and protect the environment, there's a good chance that the challenges we experience today will only be exacerbated as narrow interests and biased systems further entrench inequalities and compromise the rights of people in every country. The audacity of Schwab is genuinely breathtaking. Davos Group, Davos, Switzerland, members are the elite 1% of the world. If there has been a problem with the income inequality, human dignity, or degradation of the environment, it's the fault of them, that 1%. It's a little like the main suspect in a murder being the detective of the crime. That might make for an interesting movie, but should always remain in the realm of fiction. Those who cause these problems should not be driving the solution. Remember that. Those who cause these problems should not be driving the solution. Example, Dr. Anthony Fauci. Those who cause these problems should not be driving the solution. Schwab lets you know that his brain trust he relies on are the very people who created the mistrust among the population. Listen to this. This book is the product of many world-class experts from across the World Economic Forum's diverse community. Section 2 in particular synthesizes the perspectives of leading thinkers from the Forum's global future councils and expert network. Were it not for their generous contributions of time and knowledge, it would have been impossible to cover this breadth of subject matter to the depth required to make sense of the more impactful technology domains. I also very much appreciate the thoughtful and most relevant reflections provided by Satya Nadella, who now we know is a man, not a woman, in the foreword. I added that one part, of course. These are the people who don't live in your world. These are ivory tower intellectuals bought and paid for by the corporate titans who are upset that they don't yet have complete control over your world. I read ahead sometimes and then speak it out loud. But they don't call it corruption; they call it partnership. Ironic, right? While he sets out much of the same argument in the introduction as he does in the preface, Schwab tells you exactly what he hopes to bring about at the end of his introduction. The book closes with the vision for Symptom's leadership, summarizing the critical governance issues that leaders from all sectors, along with the general public, must tackle together to create an inclusive, sustainable, and prosperous future. Schwab isn't inviting you to help him create a better future. He's inviting you to help him build your prison cell. And I'll end it there for now. That's about 2/3 of chapter 2. I'll do the rest of chapter 2 a little later today. And then we'll move on to chapter 3. Thanks for listening. I am Eagle Jackson. This has been chapter 2 of The Great Reset by Alex Jones. Have a good one. Oh, and don't forget,